The message blinked on my phone screen, still unread. I hesitated for a moment, then tapped it open. It was from Greer. Attached were images, spreadsheets, transaction logs. Her message read, "You didn't donate $5,000 to the Harlow Wellness Gala, did you?" My stomach clenched. My name was on those logs. Not just once, over and over, linked to donations, perks, events I had no memory of attending. My thumb hovered over the screen as I tried to make sense of it. Greer was no drama queen. She'd been my roommate at UT Austin and now worked in accounting at the club. She wouldn't message me unless it mattered. And this mattered. I sat down hard on the edge of the couch. The living room blurred. My hands shook as I enlarged the screenshots. $5,000 donation, Quinn Rivers. Another entry. Platinum-level donor access, Rivers family. What the hell? The records showed my name tied to thousands in donations, but I hadn't authorized a single one. Had my parents? No. That was too far, too cruel, but the pit in my gut was already answering the question I didn't want to ask. I got up, went to the printer, and hit print on the entire email. The pages churned out slowly, each one heavier than the last. I laid them out on the kitchen table, smoothing each sheet with trembling fingers. The numbers weren't random. They matched $600 every week, the same amount I sent my parents. For years, the donations were structured in neat lines, the same dates, the same amounts. I stared at them, looking for a flaw in the logic, something that would clear my parents. But there was no flaw, only a clean, deliberate pattern, an invisible line from my bank account to the country club's donor wall. My father's voice floated back. "We're barely scraping by, sweetie." The words now echoed with a kind of dark humor. Scraping by with spa treatments, steak dinners, and engraved plaques? No, there had to be more. I picked up my phone and called Greer. "Hey," she answered, her voice low like she was already expecting the call. "You okay?" "I don't even know what I'm looking at," I said. "This isn't real." "It's real," she said quietly. "It's been happening for over a year, at least. That's just what I could find before my break ended." "Did you know there's a new wing named after the Rivers family?" she added. "They unveiled it at the summer gala." My laugh was dry. "I can't even afford a pedicure, Greer. Do I sound like someone sponsoring buildings?" Silence on her end. "You didn't know," she said gently. "I'm sorry." I leaned back in the chair, blinking hard. No, I didn't. I think you've been a silent partner in their lifestyle," Greer said. It hit like a slap. Not just the betrayal, but the realization that I'd been complicit, unknowingly, financing a fantasy I wasn't even invited to witness. I didn't hang up on her. I thanked her. Then I walked straight to my file cabinet. Years of bank statements. I dragged them out, dumped them onto the dining table, and started marking each transaction. Red for $600 transfers, yellow for any unplanned withdrawals, blue for overlapping donation entries from the club's records. Sticky notes layered every corner, dates, patterns, inconsistencies. The more I marked, the clearer it became. This wasn't mismanagement, it was orchestration. "If they want to play public," I murmured, "I'll respond private, for now." I wasn't going to march over and scream. That's what they'd expect. Emotional, hysterical Quinn. No, I'd make it boring, tedious, like an audit. And then I'd make it loud. But I needed to decide. Do I confront them now? I sat with that question for hours, the documents spread around me like a battlefield. My mother's voice echoed from last Christmas. "You make too much of things, Quinn." Maybe I had been shrinking, folding myself smaller to keep them comfortable. But this wasn't comfort. This was deception with a smile. I wasn't going to confront them. Not yet. I was going to let the lie breathe, let it grow, until it was big enough to trap them in it. I whispered to myself, more a vow than a thought. Let's see how deep this hole goes. I opened my laptop and created a new folder, titled it simply, For the record, I didn't cancel Sunday lunch. That would have raised flags. Instead, I showed up with the same smile I'd been to Noah's birthday party. Not a card, not a dollar, just a text from Malcolm saying, "Hope he eats too much cake." I smiled anyway. That was the role. Then Harlow mentioned it. "There's a big fundraiser next month. River's family will be one of the top sponsors." Serena nodded, almost proud. "Thanks to you, baby, we've got standing." My eyebrow rose. Serena blinked, corrected herself with a cough. "I mean, all of us, of course." She reached for the salt shaker like nothing happened. But I saw it. The slip, the flash of realization, the flicker of guilt, or maybe just annoyance she'd said it out loud. I sipped my tea, held her gaze for half a second longer than polite, then I smiled wider. After lunch, I wandered the house like I always did. Old habit. Sometimes Noah came along, running his fingers across family pictures. Today, it was just me. I passed Serena's study. The door was cracked. I didn't plan to listen. I didn't need to. Harlow's voice drifted out, sharp and unmistakable. "She's so easy to guilt trip. Just say we raised you and she folds." Serena laughed. Low, tired, wicked. "She's too tired to fight. And if she does?" "We flip it back. Make her feel like she's abandoning the family." I stopped mid-step. One foot on the hardwood, the other sinking into the edge of the rug. My ears rang, not from volume, but from clarity. I didn't breathe. They kept going. "She'll never walk away," Harlow said. "That's the thing. She doesn't know how. It's like training a dog. Keep the leash long enough, it thinks it's free." That was enough. I backed away. Slow, silent. Didn't let the floor creak. In the car, I sat with the engine off. The words ran circles in my head. Too tired to fight. Flip it back. Dog on a leash. My hands didn't tremble this time. No tears. No rage. Just something cold settling behind my ribs. I turned the key. Shifted into reverse. They've been playing me for years. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the storm inside me had become structure, not chaos. Structure. They wanted me obedient, easy, predictable. So I'd become all those things. Until it served me. I didn't need to scream or confront, not yet. They were building the fire. I'd just hand them the match. Later that night, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my phone. I moved the voice memo app to my home screen, then whispered to the quiet room, "Next time, I'm the one recording." Sunday rolled into Monday without fanfare. I spent the morning clearing up Noah's birthday leftovers. Balloon ribbons curled tight on the floor, icing smudges crusted to plates. By afternoon, I found a half-used bag of party favors in the trunk and decided it was the perfect excuse to swing by Serena's. No one would question me dropping them off. The driveway looked the same as always, same cracks along the curb, same hedges clipped to suburban perfection. But as I stepped up to the front door, something felt colder, like the house had hardened in my absence. Inside, the foyer was staged, not cleaned, staged. Everything looked too perfect. Not a picture frame tilted, not a fingerprint on the glass. The same old oak chairs sat near the wall, the same dusty family portrait on the stairwell. Except there was no sign of me, not one frame, not one magnet on the fridge with a childhood photo. On the entry table, tucked next to a stack of mail, sat a thick ivory envelope. Cream cardstock, gold embossed. Curiosity tugged at me. I opened it without thinking. Family Close Friends Gala, printed in elegant cursive. Below, the hosting line read, "Presented by Harlow's Circle." My name, nowhere. I stared at it for a long second before slipping it into my coat pocket. It burned through the fabric. I paid for this, not just financially, in years, in guilt, in silence. The door opened behind me. Malcolm. He blinked once, surprised, or maybe annoyed. "Hey, Quinn," he said, voice flat. "I brought leftover party stuff. Figured Serena could use them." He stepped aside. "She's in the kitchen." The kitchen smelled like lemon cleaner. Serena turned from the sink, drying her hands. Oh, honey, that was sweet of you. I didn't bring up the card right away. I watched her. Watched how she tucked a towel perfectly on the oven handle. That's when I said, I saw the invite. She gave a practiced laugh. Oh, those. They printed in batches, not personal. Harlow entered just in time, sipping from a wine glass like it was rehearsed. You weren't part of this one, sis. It was just inner circle. I nodded, like it made sense, like I hadn't just been erased. Again, I wandered into the living room, glanced at the bookshelf. The family albums were there. Years of birthdays, vacations, milestones. I pulled one out, flipped past page after page, and there it was. The cutoff. After my college graduation, I disappeared. No wedding, no baby photos of Noah, no trace of the last decade. It wasn't oversight, it was intentional. I placed the album back, spine aligned perfectly. That night, I got home and dropped my coat on the chair. The invitation fell out, landing face up. My phone buzzed, 12:17 a.m. Greer. Sorry to call this late, she whispered. I'm up. I went through archived board meeting notes. There's something weird. The house, the one your parents live in, originally listed under your name. You were marked as primary donor on the foundation forms. Then it got changed 6 years ago. I sat up straighter. Wait, what? You paid for it. Legally, it was tied to you. And then it wasn't. My breath caught. I reached for a pen, writing fast on a grocery receipt. Greer paused. Quinn, this wasn't a clerical thing. It was deliberate. I hung up after thanking her. But the thanks felt shallow. My name is your legacy. That's what they always said. That's the American promise, right? You build. You sacrifice. Your name means something when you're gone. They stole mine while I was still breathing. At my desk, I pulled up title records, cross-checked bank statements, printed them out, laid them beside the invitation. Then something clicked. Not dramatic, just quiet. This wasn't just family dysfunction, this was theft. Papered, polite, buried under donations and brunches. I started organizing the documents, labeling them. I didn't need to yell. I'd let the truth speak louder than I ever had. I opened a new folder on my desktop, named it Inheritance Audit. Then my phone buzzed again. Harlow had posted a photo, a charity gala. Banner behind her read, The Rivers Legacy Initiative. I whispered to the empty room, You can't borrow my money and my name forever. The clock on my stove blinked 3:08 a.m. I hadn't slept. I didn't even try. Just sat there at my kitchen table, bathed in the dim glow of the laptop screen. Folders spread out like a war map. Transaction logs, bank receipts, property records, Greer's emails. And in the center of it all, that one folder labeled For the Record. My finger hovered over the mouse. The send button pulsed like a dare. If I clicked it, there was no going back. I whispered to the quiet room, If I send this, it's war. Then I saw it. An old photo tucked in a drawer nearby. Me, around 13. Same eyes, same jaw. Just before everything got quiet in the house, just before I learned how much easier life became when I stopped asking questions, I remembered my father's look back then. Not angry. Worse, disappointed. Like speaking up was a betrayal. That look taught me to swallow things whole, and I did. For years. Until now. The memory folded into another one. I was 23. Asked a simple question about a bank withdrawal that didn't look right. Harlow cut me off mid-sentence. You always think you know better, she snapped, loud enough for Serena to hear it from the next room. I remember blinking. Once, twice, then backing down. That night, I said sorry for causing tension. Then I paid the electric bill. Now here I was, a decade later, still paying. But something in me knew. I hadn't been keeping peace. I'd just been cushioning their comfort. At the cost of mine. I leaned in closer to the screen, opened a blank email, addressed it to the country club's ethics board. No name, just, a member who believes truth should matter. Attached the folder, transaction histories, tax filings, Property title transfers. All of it. I didn't need to scream. Truth, when clear enough, speaks just fine without a microphone. I took a breath. They wanted respect. I'll show them what integrity looks like. Click. Send. The sound was small, but final. Next morning came with overcast skies and a silence that felt different, not numbing, alert. Around 10 o'clock a.m., Harlow posted a black and white Instagram story, white text on a black screen. Funny how loyalty dies when people think they matter. No names, but we both knew. An hour later, Serena called. Did you speak to someone at the club, honey? I kept my voice flat. No. Why? Long pause, the kind that tells you everything they won't say out loud. No reason, she finally said. Just heard something odd. Another pause. Then she hung up. I set the phone down and stared out the window. I wasn't hiding anymore, and they knew it. But that night, the doubt crept in. I sat on my bed, the house dark except for the sliver of streetlight leaking through the blinds. Did I just throw a match on my whole family? What if this dragged Noah into it? What if they turned him against me like they did with so many others? I saw it play out in my mind, Serena clutching her pearls, telling the story her way. She turned on her own family, bless her heart. But another voice, my own, pushed back. No. They turned on me years ago. They just thought I'd never notice. At 11:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. Subject line, urgent ethics review needed. It was from a board member, not Greer, someone I'd never met. Inside, one sentence. Please call me at your earliest convenience. There are details. I leaned back in the chair. Whatever came next, I wouldn't face it quiet. I landed in Pensacola just after dawn, suitcase jostling in the overhead bin. The flight had been nearly empty, as if the morning knew what was coming. I reviewed the evidence folder on my lap. Every wire transfer, donation record, title deed, matched, interlocked, undeniable. No room for denial anymore. No more waiting. I whispered to myself. When I emerged from the terminal, humidity slapped me in the face. I hired a car and rode through palm-lined streets, passing shuttered storefronts and low gardens until the gala venue came into view. A waterfront resort, porte cochere glowing under floodlights, valet under broad archways. The red carpet glinted even in the daylight haze. I parked far back, stepped out, and edged closer in the shadows. Guests arrived in sleek gowns, men in jackets. I recognized Harlow, laughing, shaking hands. A large sign behind her read, "Presented by Quinn Rivers," with her name in bold, mine small or missing entirely. My heart banged. They used me to sell glamour, sold me out. I approached the entrance, whispered to the greeter I was a donor. He handed me to staff, who examined my documents, then shook their heads. Board review only. I tried to intervene, protested my own claims, but was dismissed. Inside, Harlow spoke from the stage, praising family legacy, her voice echoing. I stood outside, chest tight. They let me fund it, but barred me from being in it. The video screen behind Harlow flickered to life. Her speech, her laughter, every moment. But mine was erased. The credits listed, the Rivers Legacy Initiative, not Quinn Rivers. My contributions invisible. That broadcast was Twist S12. My name paid for it. Now I was a phantom in my own funding. I slipped through a staff doorway when a server swung by. Hallway lights, AV signage. I reached the control room. Heart pounding. I punched numbers. Screens lit up. I switched feeds. Documents laid bare. Donation logs, title transfers, transaction chains. My name flashed bright over the gala audience. Gasps in the hall. Harlow froze mid-gesture. I leaned on the control console, voice low, firm. This is Rivers' debt. The crowd legacy on borrowed names and money that wasn't theirs to spend. Harlow's eyes darted, scanning the room. She took one step toward me, stammering, "You don't understand how these things work." I cut her off. "No, I do. That's why I documented every cent." She reached for the mic. But it was too late. I didn't need noise. I had proof. Then Malcolm stood up, his voice thunderous. "You bring this circus into our home?" "No," I said. You turned it into a circus the moment you decided I didn't matter. His jaw clenched. Get out. I looked toward Serena. She wasn't crying loudly, just quietly crumbling, mascara slipping. She didn't say a word. That was her way. She never did. My son was huddled in a corner of the hall, not from fear, but confusion. I knelt in front of him, cupped his cheek. I'm okay, I whispered. We're okay. I didn't argue when Malcolm stormed toward me. I just stood tall. My suitcase was still in the hallway. One small bag, that's all I brought. I slung it over my shoulder. As I passed the foyer, I caught the corner of a framed family portrait. I stopped, looked at it. My face, once there, had been cropped out. A younger Harlow, a thinner Malcolm, Serena mid-laugh. I wasn't in it, but I was done mourning the space they never gave me. Outside, I leaned against the rental car, the wind sticking my hair to my lip. I unlocked my phone and opened every file. I streamed them, all of them, to the online donor forums, to the ethics review boards, to media contacts I'd never dared message before. The reactions poured in. Messages. Alerts. Wait, is this real? Is this the Rivers family? She's the real donor? My fingers trembled, but not from fear. I had nothing left to prove. I wasn't asking for their apology. They couldn't erase me again. My phone lit up. Unknown number. A voice. This is Eric from the club's board council. We'd like to speak with you, and we'll need your signature to file a formal ethics complaint. I let the words hang, closed my eyes, breathed once. Slowly. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning. I walked back into the gala hall like I owned the place. The chatter dimmed, the air changed. I reviewed my plan one final time in silence. Reveal, validate, force accountability. I steadied myself. My heart was quiet but alive, nerves humming. This is for every quiet woman who ever paid. I told myself that as I clutched the folder in my bag, no more hiding, no more waiting. Tonight, everything would surface. I stepped to the podium. The hall quieted, heads turning. I raised my voice clearly. I leave behind one last check. Let it count. The envelope felt heavy in my hand. I placed it down, glancing back only once, and took a step back. Murmurs rose, faces turned. Harlow's eyes widened, Malcolm stiffened. That single gesture severed the ties they always assumed they had to me. I will not fund their lies any longer. Then the screens flickered. My documents, deed transfers, wire logs, donation records, flooded the display. Each file named me. The hall gasped. Phones hovered, news alerts began cropping up. That broadcast was real and public. Harlow's well-rehearsed speech vanished under the weight of evidence. Malcolm's face drained. The tension burst. This was Twist S16. Truth exposed live. Vindication tasted bitter and fierce, the moment charged with tension and power. Anger flared in Harlow. She grabbed the mic. You're defaming us! We'll sue you, she snapped. Malcolm joined, pointing at me. Security, remove her! He barked it like a king demanding obedience. The crowd shifted. Serena sobbed into her hand. Some guests glanced at one another. My son stood quietly by my side. A testament. I didn't step back. I didn't flinch. Have at it, I said calmly. The truth is already in the open. Club officials made their way through the crowd, asking me to step aside. Some guests offered embarrassed apologies. Others turned their faces. I walked forward with dignity. I didn't need applause. I needed this moment of reckoning. I watched Harlow's shoulders slump. The stage lights felt harsh on her now. I realized I didn't come to win their love. I came to reclaim my name. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced down. A notification. County prosecutor opens a case. My breath caught. My son squeezed my hand. We stood there. The crowd's murmurs echoed. The halls that once sheltered lies now housed my truth. They thought I wanted applause. They were about to learn I wanted justice. The sun came up like it always did. That morning, it didn't feel like a triumph or a fresh start. It just felt real. The house was still. I stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching news vans idle at the curb. Harlow and Malcolm were front-page fodder. Every station had their names splashed across headlines, faces caught mid-sentence, mid-lie. I didn't feel satisfaction. Not really. I felt quiet, like the world had exhaled, and now I could finally breathe without holding something back. They called non-stop. Anchors, producers, strangers wanting my side. But I wasn't ready to give them anything. The world is watching, I whispered to myself, but this piece is mine to own. The quiet wasn't empty. It was thick, like fog, but it belonged to me. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't carrying anyone else's noise. By noon, the call came. A woman introduced herself as an assistant district attorney. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "We've formally opened a review into the financial misconduct you exposed," she said. "We'll need your full statement and evidence." I didn't hesitate, but I didn't rush either. "I'll testify," I told her. "But I need a few more days. I have some things to finish first." That wasn't stalling. That was honoring the cost of what had come before. I wasn't running anymore, but I wasn't chasing either. Later that evening, I sat down with my journal, flipped to the back page, and wrote, "Let the system speak now. I've said enough." I closed the cover gently, as if sealing away a chapter I didn't need to reread. The next morning, I woke up early. Not to noise, but to absence. Serena was gone. No goodbye, no confrontation. Just a folded note on the doorstep and the faint echo of a suitcase wheel scraping the floor. I sat on the porch steps and read the note 3 times. "I let you carry too much. I won't add more weight now. No signature. Just truth." And I didn't cry. I thought of my mother, how she used to brush my hair in silence. No words, just presence. Some people don't know how to say sorry out loud. They just leave when it's the only honest thing left to do. I sat there for a long time, letting the ache settle where the anger used to be. That weekend, I cleared out the living room and filled it with folding chairs. Local women showed up, some nervous, some hardened, all curious. I told them my story, not the polished version, but the one with cracks and corners. "Family isn't who eats from your plate," I told them. "It's who saves you a seat." They nodded. Some cried. My son stood up at school that week and gave a speech about strength. I sat in the back, hands clenched, tears caught in my throat. Greer came by later that night. We didn't talk much. We just sat on the porch, both holding warm mugs, listening to crickets. There was no need to fill the silence. It was good company. One evening, when the house was quiet again, I took out a blank page and started writing. Not to my parents, not to Serena, to myself. The girl I used to be. You were never too much. You were just too bright for small rooms. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in a box labeled "For Her." That was it. That was the last piece. I leaned back in the chair, eyes closed. Not waiting for peace, just recognizing it. I thought about all the checks I wrote, week after week, for a version of love that was never mine. "I sent $600 a week to buy love," I whispered. "But today, I invested in me." That wasn't just a statement. That was a vow. My phone buzzed just as I stood to leave the room. A message flashed across the screen. "Hi, Quinn. I read your blog. Would you be open to telling this story to the world?" I stood still, phone in hand, heart calm. Maybe it was time, not to expose, not to relive, but to claim. My story. My voice. My terms. The morning after felt unreal. The house was quiet, but not in the way it had been before. This time, the silence was mine. The television flickered muted newsreels. Harlow and Malcolm were trending, their faces plastered with headlines about fraud and investigation. Vans from local stations lined the curb outside. Cameras pointed at my door, but I refused every interview. Not out of fear, out of choice. "The world is watching," I whispered to myself. "But this piece is mine to own." The quiet wasn't empty. It was full of consequences, of endings, of something like freedom. I stood in the kitchen with a mug of coffee, watching my son sleep on the couch. For the first time, I didn't feel like a ghost in my own life. By mid-morning, the phone calls started. Not reporters this time. The county prosecutor's office. Twist S17 had landed. The voice on the line introduced herself as an assistant district attorney. "We're opening a formal case," she said, "and we'll need your testimony." I held the phone to my ear, staring out the window at the trees my mother planted years ago. "I'll do it," I said. "But not today. I have a few things to finish first." This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about legacy. Later that night, I wrote in my journal, "Let the system speak now. I've said enough." Closing the book felt like closing a door. The next morning, Serena was gone. No slamming doors, no last fight. Just the soft scrape of drawers opening while I was still upstairs, the sound of a zipper on a small suitcase. She left a note on my doorstep, folded once. Not an apology, just truth. "I let you carry too much. I won't add more weight now." I read it in the stillness of the front hall, barefoot on the cool floor. I didn't cry. I thought of my mother brushing my hair in silence when I was a girl. How that was its own language. Some people leave because it's the only honest thing they can do. That morning, I let her go in my heart without ceremony. Days turned into weeks. The house began to change shape. I opened it up for a local women's workshop. Nothing fancy, just a circle of chairs, coffee, and open space. I used my story not as a victim's tale, but as a power playbook. "Family is not who eats from your plate," I told them one evening. "It's who saves you a seat." My son stood at a school assembly and gave a speech about resilience. I sat in the back and wiped my eyes quietly. Greer started stopping by in the evenings. We'd sit on the porch, mugs warm in our hands, watching the sun go down. We didn't need to talk. The stillness between us felt earned. One evening, after the workshop cleared out, I sat at my desk and wrote one last letter. Not to my parents, not to Harlow, but to myself at 17. "You were never too much. You were just too bright for small rooms." I folded it and placed it in a box marked, "For her." I exhaled, feeling a weight I didn't know I was still carrying, leave my body. I thought of all the checks I'd written over the years. "I sent $600 a week to buy love," I whispered. "But today, I invested in me." For the first time, that line felt like truth instead of a dream. My phone buzzed as I closed the lid of the box. A message from an unknown number. "We read your blog. Would you be interested in telling this story to the world?" I leaned back in my chair, staring at the words. Maybe it was time. Maybe the world was ready to hear my side.